Okay, and final talk for today. Our next speaker is a pure example that we are truly international because he came from Dubai. He is a co-founder and head of engineering at Zena. And when I went through his LinkedIn profile, I found some nice, catchy, fun facts about himself. And he used to work as a barista or a graphic designer. And he worked for Apple. And he also was involved in wallets, in Coinbase. Sorry. And his talk is going to be about blockchain and Web3. So kind of hot topics nowadays in IT industry. And so far, they're largely confined to the browser. So it will be interesting to listen how to make them work and why is it challenging to build Web3 on the mobile. And how can we use native tech to create most user-friendly and secure Web3 experience. So please welcome Andrew Gold.
Thanks very much for the warm introduction. You've heard of tech debt, that is LinkedIn debt. All right, great. Well, thanks so much. Last talk of the conference. I'm very honored that so many of you are choosing to spend your Mother's Day with me. But we're going to be talking about bringing Web3 native, right? So first of all, what is Web3 and why is it something that you should be interested in? What are some of the challenges of building native Web3 applications and what are some solutions? So I imagine you have a few questions. One, who is this guy? So as Evelina mentioned, started my career at Apple working on the Safari team. I then went to work at Coinbase on the Coinbase wallet product. And I got really excited about crypto, not for the reason a lot of people do, which is, they think that they'll buy some and become rich, which is nice if it happens. But I was much more interested in the utility of crypto. And in particular, this mission, Coinbase would talk a lot about expanding economic freedom, right? So providing access to financial services to people who don't currently have it through crypto. After a while, Coinbase, their main business is in exchange, and it didn't seem like we were doing that so directly. So I left. I moved to the Middle East to launch Zena. So we're building a peer-to-peer payment application similar to Cash App, Venmo, Revolut, those sorts of products. But we're going to do a little talking about Web3. Oh, and if, expanding economic freedom for millions of people and being able to go to the beach year-round and pay zero taxes sounds interesting to you, we are hiring. Okay, oh, we went too far. I spoiled it. How are we feeling about a little audience participation? Okay, cool. So what is Web3? If anybody missed my next slide that I advanced too fast. Sorry? No, oh, okay, you were close. Maybe it's important to give a little context on what Webs 1 and 2 are before we talk about Web 3. So Web 1, some of you may remember the early internet. It was read-only, right? So developers, companies could post content, you could consume that content, and that was about it. Web 2 was read and write. So, not only could you as a user consume content, but now you as a user can create that content as well. Well, the key distinction with Web3 is it's read, write, and own, right? So not only can you read the content, create the content, but now you can own that content as well. So some of you are probably thinking to yourselves, well, this is a Swift conference. If I wanted to hear about Web3, my little cousin will not stop annoying me about it. But so what does it have to do with Swift? Well, I think that Web3 is really poised to change the way that we build networked applications of all kinds, right? This is sort of a fundamental shift in how we use the internet. The space is growing pretty rapidly, so the number of developers working in Web3 doubled last year to 18,000, so it's not a huge number, but it's growing. And of course, Swift is how we build the best, most secure mobile experiences, so it's quite relevant for us, right? this is a picture of how you use Web3 today, right? It's the web. So either it's the web on your desktop with a wallet browser extension, or it's the web in a mobile wallet application, which, speaking as somebody that spent a lot of time working on this product, is not a first-class application experience. It's not a first-class product experience. So I'm giving this talk to you today because I hope that some of you will go out and build those great Web3 products of tomorrow that we can use natively, right? Like we're used to using the rest of our apps. So before we do that, like let's get into some use cases, right? So I know when I talk about Web3, this is probably the picture that comes to mind for a lot of you, right? NFTs and this hype that's driven by them. This is a use case. It's not the one that particularly appeals to me. So let's talk about a few use cases that are happening today that might be more interesting, right? So we looked at those Bored Ape NFTs, not that interesting, but maybe you're a sports fan, right? And people have been collecting trading cards for, since we've had sports, and now you can collect NBA Top Shots, which are these collectibles based on, a specific moment in sports history that now you can trade with anyone all over the world. So kind of cool. This represents this digital ownership, right, that we talked about. So some of you are probably looking at this slide and thinking, I don't know who that person on the left is or that person on the right. I don't really give a shit about sports. And you know what? Neither do I. But maybe free money is interesting to you. So another huge theme with Web3 that's very compelling to me, at least, is composability, right? So we have 3 projects listed out on the slide. So at the far left is USDC, which is a stable coin. So this is a crypto asset pegged to the US dollar. So it does not fluctuate in value, which makes it a lot more usable as a currency. In the middle is a project, Compound Finance, and Compound Finance is a decentralized money market. So you can take that USDC that you have, you can deposit it into a money market that runs on-chain. It'll be lent out, fully collateralized, over-collateralized, and you earn actually a pretty good interest rate on that crypto that you're lending. So, okay, that's maybe a little bit more interesting. And then Pool Together is quite an interesting project. It's a no-loss lottery. So you buy a ticket in the lottery runs, let's say, 2 weeks. At the end of the lottery, somebody wins the money and everybody gets their principal back. Well, okay, how does that work? So the way that it works is Pool Together, like the name sounds. All the money deposited in the form of purchasing tickets is deposited into a decentralized yield protocol like Compound. The interest accrues. One person wins all of the interest and everybody gets the principal back. Okay, kind of interesting, I hope. Okay, and another cool theme I think that's happening in Web3 is this idea of equity, right? So typically if you're a creator today and you're spending your time building or creating content, that ends up generating the most value not for you, but for the platform that hosts your content. So maybe it's Spotify, you're a musician, and you earn a marginal amount for every time your song is streamed. Or maybe it's YouTube, right? And that ad revenue gets distributed a bit, but most of it ends up in YouTube's pockets. So what's cool about Sound.xyz, this project right here, is that it enables artists to launch their music, their projects as NFTs. Their fans can purchase these NFTs, let's say early on. So this is driving revenue to the artist in ways that they couldn't access it before. And then for the fans, it's quite compelling too, because let's say you believe in an artist from day one and you purchase one of these NFTs, well, that can actually go up in value. And so in essence, you can really invest in the artists that you appreciate and care about. So I think the thing that's also important to understand with any new technology is we cannot totally predict the ways that it's going to be utilized. So if you think about the early internet, nobody would have pitched you the early internet by telling you, hey, one day you're going to be able to stand on a street corner anywhere in the world, tap a button on your phone, and a car is going to come pick you up and take you where you want to go, right? And so I think in the same way, we don't know everything that people are going to be able to do with blockchain and with Web3, but why don't we speculate a little bit? So furthering that analogy, we could think about remaking ride-hailing on Web3. So what would this look like? Well, now you hail a ride, not on some company's app, but maybe on a decentralized ride-hailing platform. And when you do that, rather than paying a company and then them dispersing it and taking a cut, money is now streamed directly between riders and drivers. In this model, pricing would be totally transparent, right? It happens on a blockchain where all the data is public, and so you can see why your ride costs exactly what it does. And in addition, you could imagine a token governance model where tokens are minted and issued to participants in the network, like drivers, riders, developers, et cetera, that could be used for governance, they could be used for payment, they could be used, you could distribute profit to token holders, so kind of interesting. Another topic in Web3 that I'm really excited about personally is decentralized identity. So if anyone here has built a fintech product before, you know what a pain it is to really know who your customer is on the other end of that computer. Decentralized identity is quite interesting. So now you generate and you own your own identity. It's not managed by a company like Facebook or Google or Apple. And even more interestingly, trusted institutions can issue verified claims against that identity, right? So that might be a government, that might be a licensing division, that could be, let's say, a school issuing a degree. And then what's quite compelling on top of that is using zero-knowledge proofs. I, as the builder of a fintech product, could verify, for example, that my customer is over 18 without ever actually having to view their birth date. So it can be much more privacy-preserving as well. So now that I've piqued your interest in what Web3 is, what you might be able to do with it, why don't we talk about how to actually build a Web3 application? And it might be helpful to define specifically what is a Web3 application. So in my opinion, this is my definition, a Web3 application consists of two main components, right? It's an application whose primary state lives on a public blockchain and that utilizes public and private key encryption for authentication. Let's start a bit with that first part, and then we're going to get into the second, which I think is a little bit more challenging. So, state on the blockchain. What does this mean exactly? Well, applications are deployed to the blockchain through smart contracts. So smart contracts are it's code, it's programs that don't look all that different from the Swift that you write, but they are compiled to bytecode and deployed to. I'm going to speak about basically the context of Ethereum, but it works similarly on other blockchains. They're deployed to Ethereum and they're run by the Ethereum virtual machine. So the blockchain sort of acts as this global computer. Bytecode is stored on the blockchain and it's associated with a given address. So an address would be a bit analogous to a URL or an IP address. Something really important to keep in mind as you're building Web3 applications is that once deployed, the code on the blockchain is totally immutable. It cannot be changed, modified, replaced in any way. So here's a really basic example of what a smart contract might look like. You have the contract definition. This is sort of similar to a class or a struct definition. It has its storage, the variables, so in this case, message. It has a constructor that is called when the contract is deployed to the blockchain. And it can have a function, like you see here, that will update the state. So how do you as a client interact with this contract that's running on the blockchain? Well, you use what's called an ABI, an application binary interface. So communication is done with Ethereum in general through a protocol called JSON RPC. This is something that's going to typically be implemented by an underlying library. I found a few. There's one Web3.Swift that's created by Argent, a smart contract wallet. I believe they're based in France. Seem pretty well supported. I haven't used it personally, though. But then when we want to interact with our particular smart contract, we use its application binary interface. So here's that contract that we just saw before, and right next to it is its corresponding ABI. So the ABI is going to be generated by a tool for your contract. I made it small so that you would squint at it and think, I don't ever want to use that, because really you shouldn't. You shouldn't be using this directly. It should be generated for you. I actually, I couldn't find a great library out there that seemed well supported to generate Swift code from a smart contract ABI. Maybe if anybody knows of a good Swift code gen library, we can build it. Not sure. And what's important is to modify state on the blockchain, you have to execute what's called a transaction. So reading state from the blockchain is very simple. This functions quite similarly to reading state from any web server in general. But mutating state is a little bit more tricky. So when you're mutating state, you as the user have to pay a fee called gas. So, the blockchain, it's not a charity, right? The people mining, they're doing it for money. This money is this fee called gas that you pay for running a transaction. And the gas, how much you pay in gas, is going to be directly correlated to the computational complexity of the transaction. So the simplest kind of transaction would be a peer-to-peer send, right? So I want to send my friend money. And then if you're calling a very complicated function, it's going to require a lot of gas to be paid. So here's an example of a transaction. So you have a from field. That's going to be the address of the wallet sending the transaction. You have a to field. If you are just transferring Ethereum from one person to another, this is that other peer's address. If you're interacting with a smart contract, this is the address of the contract. We have a few fields to determine how much gas you should pay. Not going to get into the weeds on that. We have a nonce that basically ensures that transactions are only processed once. A value, this is going to be the amount of ether associated with the transaction. It can be 0 for a function you're calling on a smart contract that you don't need to pay for. And then a data field. So this is going to be an encoding of the ABI that you used for the smart contract, if you have one, or it can be empty. So in order for a transaction to be processed, right, we need to know, okay, this was the intention of the user that submitted the transaction. And we do that through a signature. So the signature must be submitted to the blockchain alongside the transaction. And a signature is generated by using the user's private key. So it proves to the network that this is something that the user wanted to do. Now, as you might be starting to imagine, this sounds a bit complicated, right? Because I have my Web3 application. The customer is storing their private key in their wallet application. So how do I, as a Web3 app, get this signature? So just to provide a little bit more context, right? In Web less than 3, it's permissioned, right? So the service that you're interacting with is doing its own authentication, right? They're figuring out who you are. You submit a credential, right? A password, an OTP, biometric, whatever. They check that it matches their expectation. And once verified, the server processes the request. In Web3, it's permissionless. So a customer can create an account anytime, anywhere, just by generating a public and private key. The public key is used to identify the user across the network. So that's like a username or an email or something like that. The private key is used to prove ownership of the private key. So it can never be shared. And like I said, a signature must be submitted. So we talked about this, right? So the wallet stores the customer's private key, and they can never share it with your Web3 application to generate a signature, right? If they do, they've just compromised all of the user's funds. I'm sure your Web3 applications are all very trustworthy, but that just is not how the network works, right? We don't. It's trustless. We don't trust. So how can we do this, right? How can we get a signature for your Web3 application from the user's wallet? So I'm going to go over 2 possible options for making this work. So the first one is, I think, a tried and true method of apps communicating with one another, which is deep links. So I'll illustrate 2 approaches with deep links. So one is the Web3 application invokes a deep link that opens the browser in the user's wallet. They load a web page that generates a transaction to be signed. And once the transaction is signed, the browser deep links back to the Web3 application. So if anyone has set up their splashy new NFT profile picture on Twitter, you have used this flow. Honestly, this isn't native, right? You're just deep linking into web content and you're using the web content. This isn't really a native experience. Okay, another option is we can use an SDK and a web server to relay the request from your Web3 application to the wallet, right? So in this mode, I hit a server to generate a session. I get back a session ID. I invoke a deep link to the wallet application. The wallet application uses that session ID to fetch the transaction data. They sign it, give a result back to the server, deep link back to my app. My app fetches the result from the server. Maybe a little bit hard to follow, so this kind of illustrates that flow. What do you think? yeah, not great, right? Like this isn't very exciting, you know. Like I didn't even show you a code sample because like everybody knows how to do a deep link, like whatever. It's also like a pretty bad user experience and developer experience, right? So as a developer, I have to have a list of all the supported wallets that I can deep link into and integrate these different SDKs. For the user, you're bounced out of the app into another app, and hopefully you find your way back. As we all know, deep links are not always deterministic, so not very exciting. Okay, option 2. This would be to utilize an action extension. So I'm just curious, has anyone who's written an action extension? Okay, cool. So we've got one. Yeah, it's not like a super widely utilized API, but I think it actually is a system API not designed for this use case, but it suits it pretty well. So how would this work? Well, the Web3 application would package the transaction data with a standardized uniform type identifier, a custom one, into an NS item provider that invokes a UI activity view controller. So now the system will present a sheet to the customer that will list out any app that can handle that uniform type identifier. The user would select their wallet of choice, presumably, sign the transaction, and then the action extension will return the result back to the user. What do we think about this? Yeah, as I expected, a lot more enthusiasm about this idea. It's a much better user experience for the user, right? Because you're not leaving the app, right? It presents a sheet, you stay in the app. For the developer, it's way easier too, right? Because now the system has handled a lot of the hard work of presenting what options are available to the user. You also don't have to maintain a web server, which is kind of nice. I knew you guys would be like really enthusiastic about this idea, so I prepared a brief demo. Right, so here we are launching a Web3 application. You can see now it comes time for the user to sign it. The system presents the share sheet. The user selects their wallet of choice. They enter their authentication, sign it, and the result is returned to the Web3 application. You guys want to see some code? Yeah, all right. Yeah, kind of small, and also, honestly, not that interesting. I mean, it's pretty simple, right? The bulk of this is just working around the kind of clunky iOS extension API, but basically on the left, the Web3 application packages that transaction into an extension item. They invoke the UI activity view controller. At this point, the wallet extension takes over. It loads the data out of the extension context. It presents its signing experience to the customer. It calls complete request with whatever the result of that action is. And then at that point, the closure on the left takes over. We look at the result and we handle it as needed. So this, I think, is like, honestly, like about as good as you can get as far as using third-party APIs to handle this experience. Frankly, like, I think the dream would be for Apple to build its own key management solution into iOS and give developers the opportunity to use an API kind of like Apple Pay to handle this, but I don't know, we'll see. There is one small elephant in the room when it comes to building Web3 applications, right? So the App Store, Apple, they take a 30% tax on any digital purchases done in iOS apps. And I think the challenge with Web3 is that it kind of blurs the line between like what is a digital purchase and what is not, right? Like I think the App Store policies were written in a world where digital purchases had no value outside the application. Well, in a Web3 world, they kind of do. And even if we wanted to pay this tax, they don't accept crypto. So, you're kind of out of luck. I would really like to see the App Store their policies make some changes to accommodate this new space. But we all know how that goes. So, quick recap. Web3, pretty cool. I think there's some really interesting things that you can do with it that you really could not do before. Interfacing with the blockchain has its quirks, but in a lot of ways, it's quite similar to using the servers that you're used to. And I think if we work together, like as a community, right, like the demo that I showed of the wallet experience requires some coordination between, different apps, right, some agreement on standards, then I think, we can start to build some pretty cool experiences. All right, that's the talk. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for the conference, and happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions? Oh, I see one hand.
Thanks very much for your presentation. Very informative. I wanted to ask about the DID, the Decentralized Identity.
Sure.
And we know, some of us know that Block is working on that from the US. Is that something that Zina is working on as well? Your own solution?
Good question. Yeah. So, first of all, yeah, there are people working on this. They've really, I think this is a space that's been in development for like even before blockchain, right? There's W3C standards that are trying to push for this. At our startup, it's not something that's like on the immediate roadmap, but certainly something that we've noticed is a real pain point for us, right? Doing KYC and in a space where fintech is very nascent and their startups just trying to get a foothold, it's a problem that we're all going to have to solve. So it's something that's on our mind for the future.
All right, thanks for answering. And a last question. You mentioned Cash App, but Cash App uses Lightning on Bitcoin, mainly for their transactions on the crypto side. In Zina, you doing mostly on the Ethereum side, but are you thinking also to investigate that situation, especially now with the decentralization and the country's adoption and stuff like that?
Yeah. So let me clarify. So today, right, fintech is very nascent in the Middle East. So we're relying on sort of traditional fiat rails until sort of the regulation can catch up to support some of this stuff that we need to provide on and off ramps. At that point, we look at like crypto as a tool. It's not like sort of the thing that customers are coming for. So at that point, we'll explore which technologies are going to make the most sense to power the experiences we want to deliver to our customers.
Sounds exciting. Can't wait to see it in Swift. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Anyone else? 5-second rule. So looks like you're free, Andy. Thank you very much for your
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.